Commissioner Library Commission meeting together at 7 o'clock. And we'll go ahead and start with roll call.
Yes, Commissioner Werson.
Present.
Commissioner Walls.
Present.
Commissioner Willers.
Present.
Commissioner Hall.
Present.
Commissioner Bouchon.
Here.
And we'll do the salute to the flag. So everyone can please stand. Commissioner Worsing, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, and so we'll move to D, approve the order of the agenda. Motion for this?
I move to approve the order of agenda.
Well, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful. So go ahead and move on to the blue folder items.
Excuse me, do we know why we have an echo?
I think everybody's mic's on.
Okay.
Did we have blue folder items?
Just double check and see. Hopefully that'll be better, although I'm still getting an echo.
But- Okay. Do we have any blue folder items?
No.
Okay. So that brings us then to consent calendar. And we are approving the posting of the meeting and then approval of the meeting minutes. Was there any edits for minutes or anything? Commissioners?
I just know that she would say something if she were here. There are some apostrophes in the minutes from the last one, our last meeting, and I didn't make notes because I assumed that someone else would. But wherever it says commissioners with an apostrophe, it should not have an apostrophe. Yes, that's all.
I think we can, let's see, I'm just looking through to see if we can give exactly where. You saw it for the March or the April.
I think it's April because we've reviewed through
We've already
March
reviewed
last
the
week.
others, yes.
So, for example, at the top of page 23, I see a couple of them. So I don't know, should we point them all out or can we just say in general, wherever that occurs, it should be corrected? What do you prefer?
Well, yeah, so unfortunately, it's used correctly in the second paragraph. But yeah, so in the top of 23, there shouldn't be apostrophe behind library commissioners.
Right.
But in the next sentence, it does belong.
Correct, but then in the next
But then the third,
paragraph,
yeah, the
it
next one
doesn't
down, it
belong.
doesn't.
The
Right,
third one,
so-
it does not belong, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's all I see.
Actually, I did ping Commissioner Koopman because she said she wasn't going to be here. And I said, just let me know if there's any edits. And she didn't. So
Okay, well, then maybe it's okay.
Other ones.
she must have missed those three or two.
Okay, so I think with those edits to the April 3rd, 2023 minutes, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
In a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Wonderful. So that will bring us to item G. Did we have any excluded consent calendar items?
Chair, we covered that already. Actually, just for
got 'em all?
future reference, when we get to item F, we ask if there's any items that are not going to be, that we want to exclude, and then we approve everything that we want to, and then afterwards, we cover the excluded ones.
Okay,
But
thank you.
It's fine. We got it done.
Okay, so that brings us to H, if we have any public participation. Come on up.
This is my favorite part.
I didn't know it could do that.
No.
It will be helpful the other way.
Well, the commissioners, my name is Ron Morocco. I'm the chair of the Historical Commission, and I'm here for two reasons. One, I've already talked to your director about, and that is I hope that you guys all get behind digitizing all the daily breezes so that we have a more complete collection. Right now, it's hit and miss, and you have to use the microfilm on a lot of stuff, but it doesn't go back as far as our neighbor in Torrance does. We're about a 20-year lag on it. I'm also here because the city council asked both of our commissions to come up with some proposal for celebrating Juneteenth as well as the Pride Month. We took it up at our meeting, but we didn't see anything on your agenda, so we didn't know if you all have started that process.
Actually, it is agendized in the director report.
In the director's report.
Yeah, on page 25.
Okay, well, last time I looked, it wasn't part of that, but
Yeah,
great.
we discussed it in our last meeting and had made a request to bring it back this meeting, so.
Okay, so we're willing to be partners with you guys on
Wonderful.
whatever you do, because the council wanted us to do joint research and stuff, so that's it. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, a quick question for you, sorry, make you come back up. What exactly would be involved in digitizing the Daily Breeze? Do you all have those records?
So when I was dealing with the head librarian, Sue Anderson, it was finding a complete set, which I believe they found, finding a sponsor to help with the fundraising. I envision this as something that would be going to all the South Bay libraries. So you have partners all the way around, including the county, and then finding somebody to digitize. And I believe she had actually found somebody. So the only thing that they were dealing with at that point was doing the licensing agreements. And she retired, and so that took care of
Got it.
that. That's kind of where it's sat. But I do believe there's somebody in the library who's actually was looking at it at one point as well.
Wonderful.
Is there a certain date that, sir,
Sorry.
is there a certain date that you're looking for the digitization to happen? Because certainly current issues would be online anyway.
So Redondo, I believe, starts in 1984 or 86, and Torrance goes to 1964, and Hawthorne goes a little bit further back, like in the 20s. And I actually find it fun going through the old microfilm and reading about stuff that goes on during World War II. It's fascinating. So it's just, again, getting somebody to let people digitize their collection. So it's doable. Yeah. Not much happened. I mean, there's a lot that happened in Redondo history in the late 80s, but really the exciting stuff is a lot earlier than that. Yeah. And we do have the reflex that we use, but the Daily Breeze, which was the Redondo Breeze, kind of goes back even further. And daily.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Did we have any other public participation, either person or on Zoom? Do you have any comment? Just observing, okay. And anything online? No, okay, wonderful. I think we are able to just move on from H. So that will bring us to I, items continued from the previous agendas.
Chair, there's nothing on the agenda.
Don't have any, so we're good. So we'll move to J, items for discussion prior to action, which will bring us to J1, the director's report.
Was the director's report? Okay, sorry, I didn't know I was on. Thank you. So we have a lot to kind of report on. First being the status of Open Plus. We have identified a vendor contractor to be able to do the install on the door mechanism. That is scheduled to happen on the 10th. So that will be, I think, a milestone for us. After that, then we'll contact the provider of Open Plus, Biblioteca, to then, their staff have to come out and do an additional install. And then we'll work hopefully with a camera company to install the surveillance system. And so we have been making progress on that for sure. Part of it is my inexperience in getting things through the procurement process. So I've been learning, and we've been going through the proper channels and doing everything that we can to cross our T's and dot our I's, but we have been making progress on that. The other thing that I have on here is that I've been asked to take the lead on a strategic plan item regarding the coordination of volunteer efforts for the city. So I'll be making a report on next Tuesday, not tomorrow's, but the following Tuesday's meeting as far as coordinating volunteer efforts. As you know, the library does utilize a lot of volunteers, and it's a great opportunity for members of the public to contribute. Some are volunteers that want to volunteer for a long period of time. Some are students that have a certain number of hours that they need to volunteer, and we're happy to have them help us, especially on our efforts regarding summer reading program. Staffing, we recently promoted 2 part-time library clerks to part-time librarian. Really nice to be able to promote from within individuals that went to library school, got experience and trained, and they are on our part-time librarian list. In fact, I saw one of them today. Thanks to Erin and all her hard work. We just started the recruitment for part-time library clerk to then fill for those hours. What the part-time positions are basically like a candidate pool, and those individuals work for us on an hourly basis depending on where the scheduling is needed. But that is a very nice opportunity for staff, and we're glad, again, to promote from within. Just an update on our safety training. As I mentioned before, that's really important for us. So we had run, hide, fight training at both the main library and at the North Branch. Unfortunately, it's hard to capture everybody in these trainings, so we'll probably have to do a few more to get everybody involved as much as possible. But it was very informative and educational, about a 2-hour training, thanks to the Redondo Beach Police Department for providing that for staff. And then we're going to work on updating our overall safety manual so that we cover things like earthquakes and fires. And of course, we don't want anything to happen, but it's good to be prepared. And I feel like if you're prepared, that's one of the best ways to address those things. Next on the list, I have a little bit to read. Hilaire provided a little update on the Juneteenth and Pride Month recognition, which I'm just going to turn over here. Let's see. So she, in regards to Pride Month and celebrating inclusion and diversity, Youth Services Department's creating a book list for youth and teens. They also create displays in the library promoting that recognition. Youth Services Librarian and our Friends of the Library president are planning on conducting story times that celebrate inclusion and diversity. We have tentative dates for those. Right now, they're planning on having the first one at the main library on June 20th at 4 p.m. and at the North Branch Thursday, June 29th, again at 4 p.m. And regarding the Juneteenth celebration recognition, the Youth Services Librarian is working on story times taking place on Juneteenth. So we haven't set the time yet, but we hope to have that program open and available. Youth Services will also create book lists and displays for young people. And we're looking at building up our collection when it comes to titles on Juneteenth. So we have much more information for everybody in regards to youth and adults, both electronic and print. I would say that we would have more adult programs, but having been a programming librarian for many, many years, it's really challenging to put those types of programs together when you have maybe 30, 60 days. So we're, certainly willing to work with the historical commission if they have any ideas. We can probably discuss offline if they have any ideas about how to do that from either general membership or if there's an adult version. One of the things I'd like to do over the next few months is to work with both Amy, our adult program librarian, and Hilaire, our youth services librarian, to kind of get at least 12 months ahead of all of our recognitions and make sure that we're aligning our schedule with the possibility of program presenters. So I think that next year our adult programming will be a little bit more robust. Thank you, those that could attend the National Library Week proclamation. That was awesome. A really good way to promote the library, raise awareness. We're in the process of getting the proclamation framed, so we greatly appreciate your support. And I think it was a good moment for the library and the community. Also, I understand that at the last meeting, there was a request for an update on our working with the Redondo Beach Unified School District. So I can tell you the progress that we've made there so far. In March, Hilaire and I met with their the school librarian, Miss Jones. We reviewed library databases that the library has to offer and discussed different ways that we can raise awareness of our resources to students. We were kind of brainstorming ideas about possibly doing a scavenger hunt or a bingo card to encourage students to use the databases and get familiar with them before they absolutely need to write that report in 24 hours. The other thing that we discussed was the possibility of working on student library cards. I think next month I'll have some more information on this, but we had an update from the California State Library and I don't know the status yet, but there is proposed legislation to make it, I don't know how mandatory they can make it, but to mandate public library cards for students. And I think it was starting in the 3rd grade. It hasn't yet been obviously approved or signed by the governor. To my knowledge, it was last week that I heard about it. But certainly we're not going to wait on legislation. We will work with the school to encourage students to get a library card with us. And obviously working with the school and the library, there's lots of privacy concerns. So whatever we do, we have to make sure that we're complying both with our policies and procedures and the schools. But other places I have worked, we have been able to get student cards. That could come in a lot of different ways, whether we send a link and then they come in with their parents to get a card. There's just a lot of different options there. But overall, it was a really good and fruitful discussion. Hilaire was also tentatively had an idea that has worked at another library that she worked at called the Buddy Program, where teens work with elementary age students to be kind of a library buddy. So they help with homework, play games, work on crafts, or maybe read together. She's going to utilize the template that she used at her previous library, and we're going to examine it. We're not committed to it yet. We're still exploring it, but I think it's an awesome idea, and I'd love to learn more about the program. As she said, it was successful at her last public library that she worked at. And she continues to work on the summer reading program, which the theme is Find Your Voice. And we are meeting with city folks to plan the Saturday, June 10th kickoff here at the library. And of course, once we get the promotion together. We'll invite commissioners to that. Go back and see. Were there any questions about any of the items that I brought up?
The Open Plus access, May 10th door install, what does that, what's the next step after that? And how soon do you think we'll be able to have patrons come using it?
It's hard to tell, and I don't like to commit to a date. That is just a really huge milestone in the project. I think the next step, as I said, is we need to contact the vendor. The vendor will come out. There's some things that they need to do once the door mechanism is installed. That will sync the connection up to our library system. ILS is cloud hosted. So what we have to do is make sure that door access can then connect to the ILS. I'm working with Tim, our technical services librarian, to get that set up so it authenticates. And, my hope is that by the end of May, early June, that we're able to test that. Now, the turnaround time on the camera system, I don't know, but we requested a revised proposal. And again, I have a little more experience. I can't guarantee that I'll be smooth sailing, but I'm a little more familiar with the procurement process. So we'll work then to get this surveillance system installed. We already have a draft agreement and rules for using the service. So that's another huge aspect of the system that's important. So it's exciting, and I hope it happens as soon as possible, but I hesitate. Having been involved in projects, sometimes you get ahead of them, sometimes something pops up and you're delayed.
No, thank you. It's exciting. Thank you.
I was encouraged to hear about the thinking of a scavenger hunt with the students. That might be something we do with the Historical Society too.
Oh, wow.
Because there's lots of history in Redondo Beach. I don't know if we work through the commissioner how we do it, but it would mean they wouldn't just be in the libraries. They'd have to go find things outside the library as well.
One thing that we could take a look at, since I think there's a lot of opportunity to collaborate, and I've seen this happen on other commissions where a subgroup is formed and then you're in no violation with the Brown Act, and then we could have a couple members of Historical Commission meet with a couple members of Library Commission. I could obviously be involved as well, and liaison for the Historical Commission could. That's something we could look at and then explore things that kind of promote both resources. But you're absolutely right. My experience is scavenger hunt and also the bingo card. Yeah. They never get old because you just get those little stamps and you win, and it's an accomplishment, but it also raises awareness and gets people to use the wonderful resources that we both have.
Yep. Great idea. Great idea.
Thank you. Any other questions?
At our last meeting, we talked about potentially scheduling a tour for the commissioners at the library. And I know there had been some emails going back and forth. I just wondered if we were closer to having that.
I'll let Aaron respond. Thank you.
Well, I haven't heard back from everyone yet about when they might be available for a tour, but I know at least, I believe 3 of you said that you might like to have one before a commission meeting, and I think that we might be able to swing that before the next commission meeting. I can certainly get back with you and make sure that your schedules are clear. And those of you that maybe that's not a good time, we can schedule another time as well.
That sounds super.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Speaking of tours, I contacted both the new council members and invited them to the library, and we'll work on scheduling and orientation for them as well based on their schedule. So again, we can introduce them to the library. And, it's just kind of funny, someone comes in at 11 o'clock, it may seem a little slow, but as the day progresses and you get maybe around 1, the library really gets bumping. And I would love to schedule these things when you can see it, when it's really thriving, And lastly, unless there's any other questions.
I had a few.
Yeah.
So just kind of going back to some of the comments from the History Commission, just wanted to make sure, it sounds like you maybe had talked and it will work out offline for the Daily Breeze process.
I think that what I'd like to do is meet offline, and we could maybe come up with an update on that at a future commission meeting so you know the status. My experience is that I've worked with Torrance to get their historic newspapers digitized. It is a long and involved project, but it's very rewarding. So once I consider that to be one of my probably most biggest accomplishments professionally, because no one will remember me, but those newspapers will be available for forever. And that's a nice thing. Of course, with all the staff at Torrance and our friends and the city that helped digitize it. But it is a very worthwhile project. It's not without complexities, I'm sure you're all aware of. But if you can navigate those, it's very rewarding.
Is it possible to get what's already been digitized at Torrance, a copy of that, just directly sent to our library?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Is it possible to just get everything that's been digitized at Torrance just sent to our library digitally, and we can just include it?
It's available.
And then we would just have to do the oldest copies when it was Redondo Breeze.
Yeah, so what Torrance did was they digitized a few of their historic newspapers, the Examiner, the Torrance Herald, and the Peninsula News. Those are available for free on their website. I don't see that there would be any problem with us linking to them. They're basically like a keyword search. Once you're into it, it gets a little complex, but they're what they call OCR, and what that means is once they're digitized, a computer goes in and does, and you might all be aware of this, but I'll explain it in case those at home are, optical character recognition. So then it takes those images, turns them into words, and makes it searchable. And there's also a process called indexing. But they're available to answer your question, and we can certainly link to those. I think the newspaper in question is the Daily Breeze. And the Daily Breeze covers, obviously, and has covered South Bay cities. I think that the biggest challenge there would be determining what publisher actually owns the rights, and then determining whether they would be willing to let us digitize their proprietary data. There are also some dates as far as when things go in the public domain and when they're available to digitize. But again, it would probably be better to consolidate that into a written update. But I appreciate that. It's exciting. And, it's just all the stories I've heard from digitizing other. One of the really nice things was when I've worked on the project before is that Google, without your knowledge, goes in and indexes all those resources. So then we had people that weren't even coming to the library, they were Googling it and finding our resources, which is really cool because our motivation and goal was to preserve that history and make it accessible. And so without requesting it, it was crawled and made available. So that's what we want. We wanted to make it available.
Has anyone looked at newspapers.com to see if any of this has been digitized by people not involved with the city?
Yeah, so newspapers.com, I've had some workings with them. It's a very nice resource. Again, they work on two parameters. One is gaining the rights to be able to digitize those documents and who physically has them. The other aspect is newspapers.com. They're a private company and they're a business. So, I don't want to speak for them, but there is a monetization kind of involved there. So, and I won't speak to newspapers.com specifically because I don't have a representative here, but with other types of organizations, sometimes they will there'll be a price involved in digitization, and then they want to make it available to the world on a charge-based platform, but they may allow access with a library card to, your community. Those are, again, things that have to be worked out, and depending on the platform, what they're willing to provide. Yeah. But we'll definitely look into it. I think, I don't have it in front of me, but I did take a look at newspapers.com, and they had several years available. I don't know how they got those resources, but I think they were quite far back, like in the teens or the 20s.
Okay. Yeah, so I was thinking even if there's a nominal charge, it may be more cost effective than physically, first of all, finding the newspapers and then physically scanning them.
Right.
And indexing them and adding all the metadata and all the.
And just to make sure that everyone's aware, the Daily Breeze is accessible right now, I think back to 1984 or 86. I can always check the website, but it's available for free through the library there. I think we're talking about some of the older date spans.
For the versions at Torrance Library, would you have to have a Torrance Library card to access? Okay, so it's just free and open.
Yeah. In fact, if you, for homework, you can Google Torrance historic newspapers, and you should find the link to it online. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Do we have a microfiche machine in the library here?
We do.
Okay, I was curious.
We do, and I think it's a good machine. It gets utilized. I wouldn't say every day, but it does get utilized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a challenge because you kind of have to know what you're looking for, and then you can find it. I believe that the city went through a process to digitize some of the planning records a few years ago, if I remember correctly.
Ask Aaron, what has been the library's experience with digitizing?
Well, a couple of our librarians have been working on digitizing a lot of local history, the yearbooks. So we are getting, more and more things digitized. Also, volunteers have been helping scan some of the materials. I'm not that familiar with the Planning Commission's documents because we don't have those at the library, but we have been digitizing things. You can go to our website and see many of the things that have been digitized by our staff and volunteers.
Should we have those at the library?
I don't necessarily think that we need the planning documents and those things that have been digitized by the city. What I was thinking is if they had a vendor that they used for that, and we're happy with that vendor converting from the microfiche to a scannable index database, that might save a step in tracking somebody down to do it.
Yeah, I think all of those deserve some consideration, and I can definitely reach out to the planning department and see how they went through the process.
Okay, thank you. I did have a comment on June in general. Mm-hmm. I love that we're putting together displays and book lists for Juneteenth, also for Pride Month, and then coinciding with the summer kickoff. And the theme of it, Find Your Voice, is very resonant to both Juneteenth and to Pride Month. And so I think that's a beautiful package, and maybe we can continue to use that theme of Find Your Voice, not only with the summer reading program, but potentially with some of these other initiatives as well.
Thank you.
That'd be a nice tie-in, I think.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify then, for any additional adult programming for Juneteenth, will that be an offline conversation then that the librarian will have with maybe the Historical Commission or?
Definitely, we'll have that conversation. But I should also say that we'll work on creating the same sort of book list and resources as kind of passive information for the adult side as well. It's just, again, in my experience, it's difficult on short notice to secure presenters and speakers, but we'll work and see if we can put something together. I didn't attend, but apparently we did promote the city's birthday, and I think it was well attended and a really nice celebration. So I look forward to working with Historical.
Okay. I think that's also an area we may have commissioners that could help with speakers, things like that too. So if you're
Definitely.
running into a need for suggestions, we could help. And then I just wanted to say from the high schoolers that attended last time, I love all the ideas that have been put forth to involve them more. And I know just since you weren't here, that some of the major things that they said was that they feel like they just don't get a lot of information about the library being a resource to them. And they felt like the teachers are the major people that could really be the ones passing that along. So maybe when we are having those conversations with higher level high school staff, that we really are encouraging like a trickle down into the classrooms. But I think absolutely doing the library cards, that, you know, something where they are coming through and all getting a library card, or we go there and do it, would be great. And then they also just said one of their biggest needs is that they have volunteer requirements for graduation. And so really tapping into them for volunteering in our summer program, or I love the idea of the buddy program. Those were kind of the two major things that they really had comments on.
Yeah, I listened to the meeting afterwards, and it was a little disheartening to hear, I guess they hadn't heard about the library or something to that effect, which is, you know, shocking. But certainly any way that we can raise awareness and somehow do some sort of cross promotion, and, you know, the earlier the better, and get them excited about the library. Because, you know, like about high school, how many resources could they have used, not just for education, but for fun and activities? So we're exploring ways we can make sure that information is available to them.
Wonderful.
I was wondering the other day, driving by this beautiful building that we have, and we have, you know, the facade that faces PCH is a relatively blank canvas wall. And I was wondering if it would be worth looking into potentially maybe hanging banners on that front, or doing some building wraps or something.
Mural from the art.
I think a more permanent mural would be beautiful, but I was thinking even more from a temporary perspective, you know, put up for June. We've got summer reading, we've got Juneteenth, we've got Pride Month.
Certainly, I think that's something, again, worth exploring. I'm not familiar with the necessarily limitations here, and I don't even know if there are any necessarily, but I'm sure there's some policy or procedure. But I love the idea. I think it's great to capture all of that, all those eyeballs going down PCH.
And it's the space is the resource that we already have. So
exactly.
We don't have to build any new marquee or anything, which would be nice.
Definitely.
On the same subject, North Branch has those huge windows. I have never understood why we haven't used those windows to advertise what we're doing, the reading program. I mean, the banner is so far away from the North Branch. I mean, it's at the end of the street somewhere.
Right.
But we've never utilized any of the windows in the doors, or the windows, the first window where there's no trees that everybody can see when they go by. And it'd be great to somehow utilize that upper window for something.
So you were thinking maybe an internal or external banner, or?
I was thinking of just a placard in the window that with big letters that says reading program, June 10th.
That's great. Yeah. Definitely something worth exploring. I'll have to head back over to North and take some measurements.
Or Juneteenth, you know.
Yeah. Definitely.
I'm remembering as we're talking about this now that I think we had a similar discussion last year before summer reading program started. And I know we talked about potentially getting signs that we felt could be used from year to year to advertise in those locations.
Exactly.
In addition to the larger banners that go up by the King Harbor, and then I think the one on Artesia, Inglewood. So I can't recall if I feel like we did purchase some last year.
Okay. Do you remember?
I believe there were some banners like at King Harbor and on Artesia, and it seems like there was one other location that was discussed, but I don't remember.
I think Commissioner Koopman was talking about that aviation corridor or something that would be another spot.
Something by the library would be good.
Yeah, we definitely
But I
talked
don't
about
think-
one
to
here.
Commissioner Weller's point, I don't think we talked about banners in the actual library. We
No.
talked about promoting it in major thoroughfares, but I don't think we talked about a banner for the library itself.
In the library.
Yeah.
Looking out, because there's a clear spot. The first window next to the doors, when you drive by the library, is absolutely clear and you can see everything. So it'd be a fabulous place.
Definitely.
Put some kind of poster.
Yeah.
Like
So
family
poster,
holiday
you-
decorations, you just rotate them, and just, promote whatever's
Big
current.
writing, not little
Yeah.
writing.
And, we could go with something generic like, join the summer reading
Summer reading
program.
program, sure.
I have experience where they try to do the dates and you take them off and put them back on. And although I really love this year's theme, it'd probably be more economical to just say we have the program, call us for more information or
Even
visit
a
our
big
website.
a sign that says Juneteenth is coming, or
Yeah,
Pride Month. Something.
And since
Definitely.
those are both, I believe, city events
Endorsed.
now, city endorsed now, so making an investment might
Right.
make sense in that.
and then,
Potentially lower cost item could be to do window painting, some retail establishments sometimes do. So that might be something for some of the more temporary ones where we do want to include a date or some more specifics that don't recycle from year to year. Or even have, local artists or teams
Or the Art Commission.
or the art
The
commission.
Art Commission, yeah. And I believe we also were talking last year, I don't know if we got an answer if it was possible, but the marquee that the police department runs, that's on the corner here, we were curious if it was possible to put some announcements on that leading, like right before, right when we're getting signups.
Or the electronic thing they
The
carry
electronic
around,
one,
because it's on Artesia a lot too, to join
They
the
might have one
police
over there
department.
too. Yeah, I know they usually have one on the corner right here as well.
have you heard that before?
Because then that's easier to be more specific about dates and whatnot.
I can definitely reach out to PD and see how available that is for the promotion. I know that they're helping us out on the kickoff and providing some folks, so. Thank you. Good ideas. Any other questions, comments?
All right.
That's a great report.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said, thank you, that was a great report.
Yes, well, I also just wanted to say on a personal note, I want to thank Aaron for running the meeting last month. My brother passed away, unfortunately. He was not doing well. It was a very quick disease that took him, and I appreciate Aaron helping out, and especially during a difficult time like that, so thank you.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, thank you. Erin did a great job and. Thank
you.
Great, so I think we'll need a motion to file the director's report.
I'll make a motion to,
We can take more comment, yeah, but let's go ahead and,
Actually, before we take a
oh,
motion,
before,
to close,
okay.
we should take some
Yep,
questions.
okay.
I did want to comment, thank you. I just remembered it's UCR that has their website that's linked through the library. I encourage you, if you're interested in electronic resources, I think we have a tremendous resource here. The yearbooks have been coming in really handy because we get a lot of the aviation and Redondo people coming back for reunions, and we're just saying you can go online and actually access it. The postcards that Doug Thompson put together online, you guys have a professional scanning machine here so you can put all sorts of stuff, and that's been a really good resource on old pictures and postcards. If there's some way that you can unify all these local libraries into one card, I have a second LA City library card because they have the LA Times and the Herald on digitized, so that's really helpful. But if somehow there could be a county card, a Torrance card, a Redondo, and even the LA Unified kind of together so that any resident in Redondo can actually access the other libraries, I think that would be great. And I did want to point out that I believe there is a Girl Scout library patch that's available, and it may be something that you want to encourage the Girl Scout troops to look into and participate in. Thank you.
Great idea.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Do we have anything online?
No, nothing on Zoom.
No.
All right, great. So then we'll take a motion to receive and file the director's report.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the director's report.
Wonderful, thank you.
I will second that.
Great, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that motion passes. And that will take us to J2 to discuss and provide input on the city's 2023-2024 fiscal year budget.
So as part of the budgetary process, I don't have the historical viewpoint as far as how it's happened in the past, but certainly we're coming to the commission for input on the budget preparation this year. I understand there's a little bit of a quick turnaround time, unfortunately, this year due to circumstances beyond our control, but it is getting done, and we wanted to provide commission with the opportunity to provide input on our budget preparation and to answer any questions to the best of our knowledge.
So, Director Venke, typically Director Anderson would highlight what she believed to be gaps that she could fill.
Right.
That we used as input for a letter that the commission sent out, similar to the one we just did. What's the timing for the letter that you think to have influence over the commission?
Well, as I understand it, this, and again, I could be wrong since this is my first time, this was just budgetary input. It's not a budget letter to my knowledge, and we could certainly, discuss maybe, bringing forward again the mid-year budget since we've already identified those needs. Currently, we are working within our existing budget to try to address the needs identified in the budgetary letter, mid-year budgetary letter. With a change in council members and the quick turnaround time, I feel like at this point what I can do is talk to you about what some of the things, I'm sure they're probably very similar to what Susan had proposed in the past, because some of those needs just don't, go away. And then provide that forward for consideration in the preparation of next year's budget.
So how soon do you think that the letter would need to be completed?
For next fiscal?
Yeah,
Honestly, I don't think on this time frame that a letter would be feasible.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but that's yeah, I apologize.
I'm trying to recall from last year, because I think normally they consider it at the July meeting. So I think we have written it in June.
I'd have to look it up.
I know, I'm trying to remember from my computer when we've done it in the past, but.
Yeah, and when we've done it for, the feedback we've gotten from the council has been favorable. It's like, hey, it was really nice to have that in my binder. This is what the library wants. This is why the library wants it, so they don't have to guess, and not that they wouldn't. It's
Right.
It's been favorably viewed, and maybe we don't have time to do it this time, but we should think about it for the
Might
next
still
one.
be able to figure it out too, but it sounds like, Commissioner
Yeah, so
Weinstein.
according to my notes, it was April last year that we signed the letter and sent it April 15th.
Okay.
And sent it to city council, so it
So
probably
we
is.
probably did miss the window. Okay.
But I have some questions as well. So did anything come of our mid-year request letter?
Yeah, as I said, we've been trying to address those needs internally. I've been working with the city manager we had some carryover from last fiscal and collections. So right now, given the priorities, we're trying to utilize existing funds in the budget to address the needs of the international languages collection. So right now, that's where it is,
So we didn't get any additional money?
not to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay, so then I would suggest, because a couple of things that we talked about when we were writing the mid-year budget letter were the global resources or the international resources.
Yeah.
And making that a part of every annual budget going forward so that we can start increasing it and then maintain it. So that is one thing. And then another thing that we talked about was the potential for additional staffing. And at that time, he mentioned that anything that's supported in the mid-year budget wouldn't be an ongoing funding. So you were hesitant to ask for anything there. And B, you said that you were looking, if I recall correctly, big picture, you and your staff, about what you want it to look like going forward. So I'm hoping that you have enough information now that you could include additional staffing requests that, again, once they go in the budget, they're not just a one-time request, but they would be in the budget every year.
Just to address a couple of those points. So previously there was, in the library's budget, not the city's budget, in the library budget, there was, to my knowledge, not a designation for support for international world languages. So we're doing that next fiscal, and we will allocate funding internally. There are some other areas of the budget that we're looking at as possible cost savings, and then allocating those savings to the international or world languages budget. So I feel like operationally, one way or another, I'm going to try to accomplish those goals that were those areas that we're not as strong as we would like to be. And then as far as staffing goes, absolutely, I think that one of the things for me was to get Open Plus up and running, and then evaluating where the actual need will be. Certainly Open Plus for some libraries, it's an extension of services without necessarily incurring a cost, and there's a cost of setup, obviously, but a staff cost, right? But then having come from Ventura, where we had Open Plus up and running for, I think, 3 or 4 years, and we actually added positions because the library became so popular, more people check stuff out, so we needed more people to assist and facilitate with staff. So I'm hoping overall it's just a positive implementation and provides additional service to the public. But as far as staffing goes, I think it would be more prudent to assess that after Open Plus is up and running, so we can see how that's impacting our staff and service.
So I will say historically, and I haven't been here as long, so you can probably speak to even longer, that it does seem like we have a pretty good track record that when we do send a letter, that we typically are able to get additional funding into the budget as requested. So it might be worthwhile, it's only May 1st, that we could put a subcommittee together and still try to do a letter in the next week that could go to the city council for the budget.
I think one of the questions, and Aaron, I think it was that we had a one-time addition to the collection budget, and we were going to request that not be a one-time, but become a permanent addition. But there are also other avenues of the process that we can explore as well. I think with the mid-year just behind us, I would probably like to see us move forward and take some time to assess. And then, as you said, with a great track record, make sure that we're being prudent and providing good evidence for our requests, and it's backed up with good data and statistics. So again, myself being new to the process and kind of learning as I go here, I think we're in good shape so far, and I think there's certainly areas that we can enhance. And I think if you ask any library this, they could use more funding for their collections, because that's where we're serving our patrons a lot. So I think that would be a good time to utilize the foundation of this year's budgetary process, and then be informed for our next go around.
Yeah, I'll say the last 2 years, from what I can remember of the letters, we've typically always requested something for additional.
I believe they requested additional funding for the Open Plus.
Yeah, Open Plus, and then also adding to the collection every year. And then most often, I think we've had a request for an additional staff member or two sometimes.
And I would suggest particularly at North Branch, where we still have days we're closed.
Yes. I think that's something that we definitely need to take a look at. If we're going to expand hours, we would want to make sure that it was informed by our usage and our patrons, and then making the case for it. Again, Open Plus might assist in those and could, even if you were going to expand days, it could augment those services. So you could, again, have morning hours on a Friday and then have staff come in the afternoon. So I think, again, that we'd probably be better informed once we have Open Plus up and running, and then better be able to look at allocating an additional staff person if we were to request and receive that. The other big thing was before I got here, you were able to restore a lot of our operational hours, which was a huge boon for the library and the community we serve. So those requests and the fact that they were granted were really well received, and I think a huge benefit to the community, because I know that those, looking back at the last few years' budgets and the requests for hours, can't say enough about it. People really enjoy the library when it's open. And the library, I love our books and our materials, but there are so many other ways people are being productive in the library. I see tutoring going on. I see people collaborating, working on group projects. There was an author that we had a few months ago that said she used our library to write her book. I need to work on gathering more information on this, but I know from researching for proposals at Ventura, the cost-benefit analysis of investing in a library is like for every dollar you invest, I think the return is between $3 and $5. So it's a huge investment in the community, and lots of residual benefits that you don't necessarily see. Most people who are unfamiliar with it, not aside from the commission, people that are outside not familiar with it, they just think books. But there are so many great things going on at the library, and I would hate to even think of what would happen if it wasn't there. You have a great place, a safe place, and a welcoming place for our community.
Well, in the past, the council has thought of turning our library over to the county library. So we are very aware that we need to be a superior library system here.
Definitely. Definitely. I think that local control is very important, and it speaks to the way that we can meet the community needs much faster, especially when it comes to collections and programs.
I think that's where the consistent communication between our council and our commission and the city council can be quite helpful, just to make sure we're kind of getting that info out there. Here's all the things that we're doing, and
right.
Here's all the things we want to do. So keeping up with the letters, I think, is really helpful.
Yeah, I think, and there's a lot of ways to explore that. I know at the City of Torrance, once a year, we would have a joint commission council meeting. So that was a really nice way to highlight the library, collaborate, and provide feedback. We, of course, hosted that at the library. So I think there's lots of creative ways to do that. And again, even reaching out to the new council members and providing them opportunity to take a tour of our facilities and getting to know the library, because, I can only say so much. I think those of you that were able to come to the library and look at the international languages collection, I think that was probably one of the most demonstrative ways of showing that the need was there.
Well, I think that the bottom line is we are more than willing and able to help you request additional funding when you are comfortable with your prioritization and needs assessment. It sounds like that's not right now.
Correct.
Which is fine. But we do have a track record, and maybe it was just because it's been over the last few years when things have been a little weird with COVID and the library closed and open. I mean, maybe our recent track record isn't something that you can anticipate going on forever, but we have had a good track record. And so if there is something that you feel you would like our support for, we would love to support you.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Well said.
Yep. All right.
Anything else?
Okay, I think we can go ahead and move on to K, member items and referrals to staff. So the Only thing that I wanted to bring up that we haven't already talked about is the open seats that we do have on the commission. And I know Commissioner Worsing had mentioned we know, one that's going to term out, one that's going to step down, and one vacancy already here. So we have 3. I'm not certain, do you know what the process is? Do we have to request?
No, that's city council's responsibility.
Right.
They make the appointments. I,
I can put that in a library brief if you like.
yeah, perhaps.
That might be good, just so they're aware that
Yeah.
we're going to have 3 open.
I have notified city clerk's office and the city manager's office, but you're absolutely right. We need to be looking ahead and make sure that those vacancies are filled.
Can I just clarify? I had looked at it today and I noticed that for the open positions that, they will be soliciting for in the coming months, there are 2 positions listed for the Library Commission. Commissioner Beauchamp, who's terming out, and myself. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be traveling extensively in the coming year, and I don't think it's fair to run again and then not be here. So I'm not planning to serve on the commission for this coming fiscal year. And with the position that's currently open, that would be 3. That vacant position is not shown currently on the list that the city has. So I just want to make sure, if you look at the library commission page, it states that there's 1 vacancy, but if you look at the list of all of the commission openings, it doesn't show the vacancy. So I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
that should probably be revised because people will start turning in applications now for commissioner positions because they typically do the interview process end of July or August.
Yeah. Then terms start in October, right?
I will follow up on that. I did not know that it wasn't showing up on that other page, so I will let them know. Thank you.
Any other member items or referrals to staff?
Do we want to make a motion on the mural discussion that we had? That feels like if we want to agendize it, that the window dressing, maybe I'll make a motion to add window decorations for Main and North Branch to promote the various events that we have going on. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
May we amend it slightly?
Yeah.
So that it's not only window decorations, but also consider that front facade?
Yes.
So I move that we amend your motion to include the front facade of the building in addition to window banners or painting
second
or
that.
other notification methods.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And then I noticed the stats weren't in this, like the gate count, and will we have that next month?
It wasn't with your packet?
No, it didn't come through this time. Maybe it was just a mission. So it's not a policy change. We'll see it next time. Okay,
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought it came with your packet.
it's all good.
But I have to confess, I had terrible computer problems the day we were trying to actually put the agenda together and publish it. And so I'm guessing that did not come through then. I didn't realize that it didn't come through.
It's all good.
So, sorry,
It's all good.
I did them.
All right, any final public comment that we have online or?
No, there's no one on Zoom.
All right, then I think we would be ready to adjourn. Do I have a motion?
I move to adjourn.
A second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Wonderful, we'll adjourn at 8:03.